But where we began to see a very serious hijacking of the word homeland is in 1947. In 1947, the United Nations came out with a resolution, a non-binding resolution, saying that Palestine is to be divided. 53% of Palestine would go to the Jews, and 47% of Palestine would remain for the Palestinians. This is at a time when the Jewish inhabitants of Palestine only possessed 7% of the land. In the following year, in 1948, due to decades of what is called a struggle for liberation by those who belong to the Zionist ideology, in 1948, they declared, the month of May of that year, they declared what they called independence. This is unlike independence of other countries or other peoples. Other peoples declared their independence because they got rid of colonialism and they got rid of the British or the French mandates that were in the area. In this particular instance, true that the British had left, but the people who were the native people of that land were still there. So this declaration of independence could not mean independence for the people now, the Palestinian people, who found themselves under a new set of imperialist or colonialist laws. In 1949, there was a struggle and a skirmish of duration in this year from 1948 to 1949. And a result of that, there was a ceasefire that was reached in 1949, by which these Zionist fighters belonging to an assortment of underground militias were in control now of 78% of the Palestinian land. As a result of that, over 418 Palestinian villages were destroyed and demolished, razed to the ground. Over 775,000 Palestinian people were expelled from their homes and from their homeland, in effect becoming refugees, stateless people. In the atmosphere of the time, the United Nations came out with its resolution number 194, which called on the immediate return of all Palestinian refugees to their homeland. Of course, that never happened. From then on, there was a solidification of what was called, these are not my words, what was called a Jewish homeland. This Jewish homeland was established according to Zionist ideology. And Zionist ideology, in its very building block elements, is a racist, exclusivist, discriminatory, oppressive system that has victimized the Palestinian population. In 1967, the Israeli Zionist nation state, not homeland, here is where, please tune in to what I'm saying. When the struggle for a Jewish area of the world, and I'm skipping a lot of details, But when that struggle culminated in a Jewish population making itself present in Palestine, the motivation for all of that was a homeland. Never have we encountered in the beginning years of this movement of Jewish peoples from around the world, from Europe, from other countries in the Middle East, from faraway territories, when they were moving to Palestine in the first half of the 20th century, they were moving to have a homeland. They were not saying, we want a nation state. The Balfour Declaration was not a declaration giving the Jewish people a nation state. It was a declaration giving or granting the rights for Jews to have a homeland. What Zionist ideology did was take, in a very subtle way, this is one of the areas that does not come under the scrutiny of public attention or public opinion when we speak about, or when you hear about, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So in effect now, after 1948 and 1949, we are no longer speaking about a Jewish homeland. We are speaking about a Zionist nation state. And this makes all the difference in the polarization of the Muslim peoples on one side and the Jewish peoples, or people who are Zionist by definition, on the other side. So in 1967, not a Jewish homeland, but a Jewish, or more to the point, a Zionist nation state launches a war against Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and cripples the armed forces in these three countries. And as a consequence of that, expands, in other words, occupies, or if the word occupation is a neutral word to some people, it steals territories and regions belonging now to other peoples, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, and the Syrians. And it holds on to those territories, even though there was a United Nations resolution, UN Resolution 242,